really quite fun once you start getting all of this support and people start coming out of the closet and supporting you and say, I knew about this all along. They sign our petition. We have 700 architects and engineers now demanding a new investigation.
Well, it feels good when you're doing something for the right reasons, when there is a struggle in order to get this information to the masses, and you are in some cases laughed at, ridiculed, attacked viciously on your personal character when people don't even, know you personally. It's quite disgusting. And, I think that we should really go over that story, because I didn't realize that at the firm you worked at, you had 15 other guys with you that you presented this information to. How does that go? I mean, you work at a firm, you work with 15 other architects and engineers, you're an architect yourself, you design houses and whatnot, and they all laugh at you at first. You present the information and you turn all 15 around and they actually sign the petition. Like, what's the time frame on that, and what evidence did you present? Did you just do the little slideshow with them, or did you just kind of start showing them things individually in your spare time?
Well, in the beginning, and they just didn't have enough information to make a decision until you see it all at once. I took a whole hour at lunchtime, bought them pizza, and through the course of this early presentation, my God, that was 2.5 years ago. They by the end, it's clear they were stunned. I mean, they didn't know what to do. Yeah, they signed the petition.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's very encouraging, because a lot of people want to point out, oh, Richard Gage is the only architect that does this. They don't have any numbers. Your entire firm, after looking at the information, signed it. Could the entire firm be wrong, folks, after actually looking at the physical data, looking at the NASA thermal imagery, looking at what the officials said and how it does not add up, looking at the fact that it took them 7 years to put out a report on Building 7, a 47-story skyscraper that was the United States' #1 spook house outside of Washington, D.C. I can't even go over everything that was in that building because we just don't know. What I can say is that it had the largest Secret Service office in the world. It had the largest CIA base outside of Langley, Virginia. It housed the Securities and Exchange Commission. It was the place where all local government was supposed to go on 9/11 for a terrorist attack or a natural disaster, the Office of Emergency Management. And then we find out that the two people that actually go there, Michael Hess and Barry Jennings, are both on record that day talking about explosions in the building and being rescued by NYPD and firefighters later. We get an interview with Barry Jennings where he talks about stepping over dead bodies in the lobby on his way out. Remember, the official reports don't even have anybody dead in there, and that's how the 9/11 Commission was able to say, we really didn't look at Building 7. We have a footnote about it, but there was no loss of life in that building. That's what Thomas Keane said. No loss of life, so we don't need to look into why that building fell. I mean, how ludicrous is that statement, Mr. Gage, that just because nobody died there, which is a complete and total lie, contradictory to what we know from eyewitness testimony, that we can't put the loss of a 47-story skyscraper that essentially must have just committed suicide. I mean, it fell into its own footprint. That's what buildings do.
Never before in history has an office fire brought down a steel frame high-rise building. Mm-hmm. And this was the third worst structural failure in modern history, not even mentioned in the 9/11 Commission report. Certainly it deserves a fully resourced forensic investigation, but what happens? They take the steel and they ship it, 99.8% of it, to China for recycling before the report comes out. And when the report comes out from FEMA in May of 2002, what does it say? It says, our best hypothesis as to how this building came down, which is fire, has only a low probability of occurrence. Further research, investigation, and analysis are required in order to resolve this issue. And there's no way to resolve it other than through the other evidence, which they didn't bother to print, which clearly points to explosive-controlled demolition with thermite. Why thermite? Well, high-energy explosives are usually used to bring down high-rise buildings. The only way we know how to bring down high-rise buildings smoothly, symmetrically, at free fall speed, by the way, acknowledged by NIST, is with high-energy explosive C4RDX. But if you didn't want to leave that loud bang of those that material and the loud and the bright flashes that they're associated with, you might use something different that's never been used in a controlled demolition, like thermite, which isn't as bright and doesn't have quite the signature of a boom that the high energy explosives do. Well, we still have explosions heard by witnesses at the base of the building at the onset of destruction. Whistleblower Kevin Bartmer and Kevin McFadden, Craig Bartmer and Kevin McFadden, and others talk about explosions.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk about that on the other side. I got a bunch of callers here. Tell the screener if you want to ask Richard Gage a question, and we'll go to you on the other side. It's the InfoWarrior with Jason Bermas. Go check it out right there, 2,700 degrees over at the InfoWarrior.com.
Do you understand how dark it is? How far down the line we are? How late it is?
Gotta make a plan, you gotta do what's right. Can't run around in circles if you wanna build a life. But I don't wanna make a plan for a day far away. While I'm young and while I'm able, all I wanna do is...
We are back. It's the InfoWarrior with Jason Bermas. We are joined by architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth's own Richard Gage, and we're discussing Building 7. And I just want to go through some of the major contradictions in, the lore of Building 7. First of all, back in 2004, when Popular Mechanics took it upon themselves on behalf of Hearst Publications to attack the 9/11 Truth movement, when they went to Building 7, they went to a man named S. Shyam Sunder of NIST. And S. Shyam Sunder made the false claim that they had pictures of the building that nobody else had, and Popular Mechanics got to see these pictures, never been published, not even to this day, that showed the damage of the south side, that up to a quarter of the south side of Building 7 had been scooped out. Now you fast forward, I believe it is 4 years later when the report comes out, and they have to admit that's false, don't they, Richard?
They don't acknowledge that the damage, whatever it was not significant, a significant factor in the collapse of the building, because the damage was nowhere near the column 79, which is under the east penthouse, which collapses first. Mm-hmm. So their whole theory has to focus on that area of the building. They also, by the way, pulled the rug out from Popular Mechanics when they acknowledged that diesel fuel did not have an effect at all on this building. It wasn't even burning. Mm-hmm. And so this was these were the two major tenets of Popular Mechanics debunking, if you will, of the 9/11 Truth movement, and Shyam Sunder himself pulls these rugs out from under them. And there's not much left, because what he also did is acknowledge, after having said that if these buildings didn't fall at free fall speed, it was 40% of free fall acceleration. If it would have fallen at free fall acceleration, that would mean there'd be no structure to resist the collapse. Well, now, after public questioning by members of AE 9/11 Truth and others during their conference, public conference, I think in November, the final conference, no, in August, September, whatever it was,
mm-hmm.
They now acknowledge, okay, you're right, sorry guys, it was free fall acceleration. The first 100 feet of this building's drop is free fall acceleration. But they don't go back and say, but that means there's no structure, so I guess the structure just magically gave up the ghost. In order for that to happen, the columns have to be forcibly removed, synchronistically timed, floor by floor, in order for a building to drop like a house of cards at free fall acceleration. No resistance. There's 40,000 tons of structural steel designed to resist any kind of a collapse in this building, in fact, with a safety factor of 3 to 5.
Exactly. And that Office of Emergency Management was retooled in 1999. You can see this information in Loose Change Final Cut, where they actually admit that it would be set up, that building alone and structure would be set up for a 50-year storm of unbelievable magnitudes, hurricanes, tornadoes, you name it. On the other side of this break, when we take some callers, but I want to also get into the fact that their explanation, this explanation of thermal expansion, is in direct contradiction to what they claim with Towers 1 and 2. I'd like you to explain that to people.
Well, the thermal expansion is these long-span beams. They had to come up with a new phenomena. So the fires, first of all, that were on the floor 12, they say were out of control during the last couple hours of the life of this building. But the photos and videos show no out-of-control fires, first of all. I mean, there's no conflagration. There's 8 to 10 fairly small fires is what they show. But in addition to that, on this particular floor, they're out. They burned out within an hour and a half prior to the building's collapse at 5:20. Mm-hmm. So how could it even happen? But what they say is that these beams expanded and pushed the girder off of its seat on column 79, causing the floor to collapse, about 9 floors, in fact, around column 79. Finally, without any lateral bracing, it just buckles, and then the whole thing caves in on the inside under the east penthouse.